Hey guys, how's it going? So I'm here in the Michigan Capitol in Lansing with Representative Jim DeSana. How's it going?
Good, Micah.
Good, nice to see
Good
you.
to see you too.
So if you guys remember a couple of years back, the Democrat trifecta did pass the red flag laws, and we are living with them today in Michigan. And I've got good news for you. Rep. DeSana has introduced 3 House bills, which would be 4138, 4139, and 4140 to repeal red flag laws. Is that right?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, so what made you decide to introduce this bill right now?
These bills were unanimously opposed by our Republican caucus. This was bad law. There were no hearings, improper hearings, and the hearings last term, they were found to have violated the Open Meetings Act. If you look that up, the majority party violated the Open Meetings Act. This was all rushed, and now we have a bad law on the books that really didn't need to be passed. We had all the tools necessary before this to deal with violent individuals. We had opportunities through 5150 holds, 72 hours. We had the opportunity, if there was somebody that was threatening violence, to deal with everything we're dealing with now. Nothing has changed in that regard. These red flag laws are being abused. They're being used to violate constitutional rights. I don't know where the 5th and the 14th Amendments went. How did they disappear? How did people lose their 5th and 14th Amendment rights?
Yes, I agree. And as I've told my viewers so many times, I don't even know how it could be possible to have laws such as these on the books in America where we have the Bill of Rights. And I would say not only does it violate the 5th and 14th Amendment, but obviously the 2nd Amendment, the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. We're also supposed to be secure in our persons, houses, papers, and effects against an unreasonable seizure.
Your home is your castle.
Yes.
And this turns the American legal system upside down in so many ways. I mean, I didn't even mention the 2nd Amendment because it goes without saying that your 2nd Amendment right is absolute. So if you have not been accused of a crime, a specific crime, and had the right to face your accuser, you've lost your rights right there. If you're being asked questions by a law enforcement officer and you can answer them correctly, and yet you still lose your guns, how is that right in America? How is that still America as it was founded?
I agree, and that's why it's insane that we have laws like this on the books. So basically, I think everyone pretty much knows what a red flag law is, but it's kind of like they say take the guns first, then due process, but that's actually not due process at all.
There's no due process because you can't face your accuser, and you don't get the opportunity to counteract the accusation in a court of law.
Yes.
The first thing that happens is you lose your 2nd Amendment rights, you lose your guns, and as we have spoken before, if this is about safety, what about the violent individual that is just left out there like, hey, go have a nice life, we just took your guns, and now you have a person that's even angrier in most cases, and if he was violent, we just said, well, go off into society, we've got your guns now. How is that safe? How is that, how are we serving the purpose of creating a safer community, a safer culture, when all we're doing is taking the guns and totally ignoring the mental health or the difficulty that this person is having, if he's truly having difficulty. Now, when it comes to the abuse cases, which are a whole nother discussion, how does a 6-year-old make a statement and get his whole household denied their 2nd Amendment rights? This was supposed to be a law about a violent individual, not their 6-year-old child. How does an 8-year-old in Alger, Michigan, make a statement that could be perceived or construed as something that would be, quote unquote, violent or threatening? First of all, how does an 8-year-old make a violent statement or a threatening statement, knowing most of you, I have 8 children. They can spout something off and they can say something and you're like, oh, come on, that's ridiculous what you just said.
Or they're repeating something they heard in a TV show or
they might be repeating their older brother or sister who just said something. And a judge, to me, the best case, a judge or a person in law enforcement could come and interview this person and say, okay, your child had a moment of lax judgment. It has nothing to do with violence that is going to happen in your household.
Oh yeah, time for the kid to get grounded. But we have as we have as reported here by the Detroit News. They're talking about all these instances lately, several, where look, they're now taking this red flag law. It was supposed to be for the, well, it's not for the person, it's to take the guns away, as you just said. Now we're finding out it's for the whole family. So a child that doesn't even own firearms, in some cases here had no access to firearms, they come to the house and take the guns from the parents.
Everyone in the household,
Yes.
husband, wife, older brother, maybe an older sibling that's living in the household that has a shotgun for hunting. They lose all of their guns in the household because of a statement of an 8-year-old. And out of how many of these were ex parte? I think the majority of them, right? When
Yes.
you don't, it's after the fact. You don't get a hearing. You don't get to dispute, hey, this is all a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
This is all a gigantic misunderstanding. And then let's go back to 5150 for a moment. The tool is there for any of you that are not understanding this. If somebody is violent, you can hold them for 72 hours.
Yes.
The judge can evaluate. A psychiatric professional can evaluate if this is truly a problem. You have the right to counsel. You have the right to have witnesses. It's going to be handled in court,
Yes.
where it should be. Not take your guns away first and let's figure it out later. I don't think there's any instance where your 5th and 14th and Second Amendment rights can be suspended for a period of time without due process. So this is a question of due process. Do you lose your due process in America because of a law, an extreme risk protection law, a red flag law? Do you suddenly lose your constitutional rights? My answer is no, absolutely not. You retain those rights under our Constitution. These laws are unconstitutional. They are wrong for the state of Michigan. They're going to be abused. We know they're going to be abused, and we're here to repeal them and say, let's go back to how we were and let's fix this system.
And then they're being abused already. And obviously we talk about the Second Amendment of the United States. Michigan Constitution, Article 1, Section 6. Every person has the right to keep and bear arms in defense of himself and the state. So this also violates the state constitution as well.
In fact, the state constitution, the wording in the state constitution is stronger than the U.S. Constitution. I believe it says shall.
Every person, it says too.
Every person.
Now, you talked about rights a second ago. Where do you believe rights come from inherently?
From our Creator. Rights come from God. The natural law, right to defend oneself, right to defend one's life, preeminated our Constitution. But our founding fathers, in their brilliance, knew that natural law belonged in our Constitution. Everyone should have the right to defend themselves against being killed by a perpetrator.
Yeah.
So they knew that this right needed to be ensconced in our Constitution and never taken away, ever. And this is what is important to remember. This right to self-defense cannot be taken from you. And that includes personal firearms, armaments, to defend your home. And so this law turns that upside down, because obviously this right to self-defense could be taken away. Honestly, Micah, somebody could say, hey, I think the whole DeSana family is violent right now, and it could be abused, and we lose all of our guns. We have no right to dispute that.
Well, you could have an ex-girlfriend, an ex-wife, a former roommate. You could have a relative. But people also forget that the state can red flag you. A police officer, medical health care professionals, people within the schools.
And I'm not going to deny that there are probably some cases where someone is truly violent.
Sure.
And our previous law addressed that. We had a law on the books that could address that legally without you losing your constitutional rights. I need to reemphasize that.
Yes.
You did not lose your constitutional rights under the previous law, and it was all the ability of law enforcement, the ability of our legal system, the ability of individuals who felt threatened were all in place. A person who said, hey, I feel threatened, could go to law enforcement. And in most cases, that was going to be handled expeditiously. Now, the first thing you lose is your Second Amendment right.
Yes, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because a lot of my friends are like, well, we need to support the police, and the police are finding this as a useful tool in the toolbox. And I'm glad you're reminding people they already had the tools they needed to get these violent people separated from the situation they were in.
This is what people need to understand. This was an unnecessary law. We already had the tools necessary. If you remove the violent individual, they don't have access to their guns. If a person is in jail or a person is being held in a psychiatric hospital, they don't have access to their guns. His wife didn't lose her Second Amendment rights. An older sibling didn't lose their Second Amendment rights. The violent individual is removed. And then you can determine, okay, the judge, I mean, we're relying on our legal system, right? We would hope that a judge would be able to determine whether a threat is real, perceived, or made up.
Again, through due process of law, where your attorney can be there with exculpatory evidence, where you can show that you're not guilty, all of that's very important. And I do want to end with this real quick, because, you know, you talked earlier, this is really important to think about. Somebody's so violent, they're just so hell-bent, they want to do something wrong. This is an evil person, and we do have evil people out there.
We sure do.
And they take the guns, but then they leave this evil person. And I go back to the good book where it was written long ago that Cain killed Abel with a rock, with a stone. So if people have a way that they want to do something, they're going to find it, regardless if you take their guns. And I always like to look at this for what it really is. I think it's a battle of good versus evil, and you can't legislate morality and infringe on people's natural right to keep them better.
If somebody is bound and determined to commit a violent act, an evil act, the best way to address that is to address the individual.
I agree.
Not the baseball bat that's down in their basement.
Yeah.
Not their car.
Yeah.
How many things could we take from them? All their knives?
Yeah.
Every possible instrument that he could use to commit violence. Are we really going there in society? Is that where we're headed? Where
Yeah.
every single instance we have got to get, every single example, and people will counter argue and say a gun's too easy. A gun is not bad in and of itself. In fact, a gun can be used for good. Obviously, we have law enforcement. We protect ourselves with guns, right?
Yeah.
We protect our president with guns. And so don't always look at the gun as bad. The evil intent is not in the gun. It is in the mind of the human being, and it comes from our inability to do the right thing. So when you have a person that's determined to do something bad, address the individual. I think that's the key thing here in this red flag repeal says don't address the gun, address the individual. That will take care of the problem.
Okay, guys, so we need you to contact your Michigan representatives. The Republicans do have the majority. We want this to get on the floor for a vote and have it pass through the House. Yeah, the governor will veto it. Yeah, Winnie Brinks probably won't pass it in the Senate, even though they say they're more moderate now, so we'll see. But we need to do this just to show that there's a difference now that the Republicans have taken majority. And I would also note this has been referred to the committee that is chaired by Sarah Leitner. So I'm going to leave the information to all the people that are in the committee down there in the pinned comment. So make sure you check that.
And also mention too, Micah, there are 25 co-sponsors on
Yes.
this bill, this series of bills. Please compliment the people who stepped up to co-sponsor this. There are 25 Republicans on this bill and on these three bills, and there are probably others that support our cause, probably many others, and this was unanimous.
I just ran into Representative Holding in the hallway, was talking to him. He's excited about this bill. I just ran into Gina Johnson a minute ago, and I have read all the names on a recent live stream, letting everybody know. So thank you for being here, and I really appreciate these bills.
Thank you, Micah. Thank you for all you're doing. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. All right, guys. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.